Hi, in this video we're gonna talk about the biggest problem faced around the world when it comes to closing a deal, and that is a standard stall, not objection, a standard stall in the close. I really want to do it, but I need to have a think about it. Hi, my name's Matt Elwell of the Elite Closing Academy. If this is your first time on here, make sure you press the subscribe button and, much more importantly, ping the notification bell so that you do get all of the information and free training that comes with being subscribed to this channel. And in this video, we're going to cover the one technique that you and your team need to use every single time when the prospective customer, client, prospect says to you in the close, I'd absolutely love to go ahead, but I just need to think about it. And the technique that we use is something called the 3 A's. Master this little technique and I promise you this goes away. However, and there is a however, before we talk about the 3 A's, I've got to get something really, really clear. And that is your cycle, your sales cycle, to go from at the beginning of the sales journey between two humans, two businesses, and remember, businesses are humans, that process from the start to get up to the point when you have earned the right to ask a closing question. Without a shadow of a doubt, when a prospect says, I'd love to, but I need to have a think about it, or I'd love to, but it's not the right time, those kind of stalls, they're only saying it because you have created uncertainty in them, and that can be a number of different reasons. Often you haven't earned the right to ask a closing question. So if I just show you this on the whiteboard, because this is really, really important. This is the start and this is the finish. Or even if this is the start and this is the finish, this is called the dungeon of denial. This is where you have got right up to the very end and your head is pushing against the door of the dungeon of denial. Now, if you're hearing from prospects, I'd love to, but at that point, you haven't earned the right to close. So that's the first thing. You must get this process of prospecting absolutely nailed down. And the way I split it is this. This is where you make a written proposal. Now, prior to making a written proposal, it's important that you understand every single pain that they've got linked to your product or service being the solution. That's the first thing. The second thing, you must know what they need. So by knowing their real pains and real problems, you've got to know what they need to solve those pains and problems. By asking powerful questions that gain understanding and knowledge rather than telling, which is bad selling, or presuming or assuming to know, you're asking, that in itself will stand you and your team out and create trust, human to human, prospect to prospect, board to board. Once you've got trust, you then find out how urgent is this to resolve. When you have those 4 things, that is when you can put something in writing and make a proposal. Now, everything that happens in this section, this is now a warm prospect, and you can start to bring closing questions into the equation. If you're asking closing questions prior to this proposal, it's too early. And that's where you start to hear things like, I just need to have a think about it, okay? If you're hearing those things, you must look at your process and do not ask closing questions until you've earned the right and you've got these 4 critical things. Now, this can take time, and it's important that you as a business, no matter what you do, whether you're a professional service, whether you're in property, whether you're an expert, whether you're in the financial services, doesn't matter. You have to understand this process so that when you do get to the dungeon of denial, humans are always looking for ways to get out. I'll have a think about, take my time. And if your team have earned the right and really understand this, you never get people saying, I need to have a think about it, because you'd have found that out. How long do you need to take time? What time do you need to make decisions? Is a question you'd ask prior to making a written proposal. That hopefully makes sense. Now, let's get to the 3 A's. If your team have followed all of this religiously, and you get up to asking a closing question right on the dungeon of denial, so, how quickly do you want to get started? I'd love to, but I need to have a think about it. As long as you follow that process, the next 3 A's can be brought into play. I'm going to do this again, just so you're super clear. If you found all of that information out about your prospect, and you understand one of the questions when you're prospecting prior to the proposal was, what time scale do you need to make the decision? If you've already asked that question, and you ask a closing question with all this information, and their answer is, I'd love to, but it's not the right time. So the first thing you must do is always agree. So look, I'd absolutely love to go ahead with your product or service, but it's just not the right time. I need to have a bit more of a think about it. First thing you must do is, look, I understand it's not the right time, and I know you've got to think about it. Here's what we're going to do. Let's get you booked on so you don't miss out on the course. And while you're thinking about it, if something really comes up and you want to stop, it's fine. We can talk about that later. Now, I've got 2 dates to get you started, Monday the 10th or July the 17th, which one suits you best. And that's the accelerate, so flip back into your acceleration. Now, if you're not clear on this technique, it takes training, it takes time. I just want to make this really clear. You can only use this technique when you've done this, and you've earned the right to stay in the game by using the 3 A's. You must understand that this is not a technique that can be used this side of the fence or in here when you don't really understand them, when you don't understand your prospect, when you don't know what their pains are, when you don't know what they need, when you don't trust each other, and when you don't know the tiger in the garden moment, the real what's going to happen if they don't solve it. This is crucial. You can only use the closing technique using the 3 A's when you have earned the right to ask the big question. And just remember, it's called the dungeon of denial, and there is an E somewhere in dungeon for a reason. Is that, look, in this modern age, we're all fearful of being hard sold to. We're all fearful of being duped. Even when we trust people, there's, if we've had an experience in the past that was poor, and let's face it, there's so much bad selling in the world right now that often we've had a bad experience. I mean, we've all done that, and we've all been part of a bad experience. That's where this lives in the brain. It's just really important that you have the skill to recognise when you've earned the right, that even with a little store like I just need to have a think about it, that's not a reason why they shouldn't do it. And just remember, I'll have a think about it. If you understand those 3, it's not a reason for them not to do it right now. So to recap, to make this really clear, the technique, when you or your team have earned the right to ask a closing question, where you understand your prospect on a personal level, you understand what the problems are, what their pains are, what they need, you've gained huge trust that you're the solution to a problem, and you know that if they don't change or don't do something differently, more importantly, they know if something doesn't change, it's going to continue to hurt the business badly. That's a really detailed training. I really hope that it's connected with you. If it has, comment in the box. How do you and your team get around, I need to have a think about it? What techniques have you got? What do you use at this point? when you get to that moment where they really want to do it and there's just that little bit of need to have a think about it, the 3 A's are agree, appease, and then accelerate back into the close. Agree, appease, accelerate. That's the technique. The other key thing is subscribe to this channel. These techniques are life-changing and this is free training. Who do you know that needs this training too? Who do you know has got a team and finding this stall difficult to overcome? And lastly, be sure to click on the notification bell and get this free training weekly.